And so welcome. Oh, and we have Mel Suchers joining us as well. So we'll give Mel...
Sorry, Craig.
Hi, Mel. No problems at all. Welcome. We're just getting underway. I just hit the record button. So you're obviously waiting for that moment where you could make a grand entrance. Well, if your video doesn't come on shortly, you're going to lose that impact, Mel. So, but it's all good. Hi. Hi, Mel. Welcome. Welcome. So look, we'll get straight into it. I'm just going to bring up my slides and we'll get started. So welcome, everybody. For those of you who know me, well, I don't need to introduce myself, do I? But I'm Craig Stevens, a member of the Fresh Online Hub, and I'm a business performance coach. So my fascination is helping business owners and their teams really drill down to the critical behaviors that make a difference when it comes to the results that they're seeking to achieve. So today's webinar is looking at, as I said before, what, from my experience working with clients and just in general in terms of my career, what are the really important actions that need to be consistently focused upon to drive high performance? Generally, you know, we all have an idea about what we need to do day to day, week to week. The question is how consistently good we are at those things. And these 7 actions will help identify, certainly by the end of today's session, I believe, at least 3 actions that you could put into practice in the next week that's going to help your business performance, your work performance. As I said before, it could be anything that you're striving to do. And so in terms of the outline of today, we'll be going through those 7 actions. But before we get started in that, I just thought I'd just run a quick exercise with you. And what I'd like to do as a bit of a warm-up exercise is, as a group, let's see how many words, 3 or more letters, we can make out of the word performance in 60 seconds. So I'm going to bring up a timer. Now, this is a group exercise, okay? So we're working together as a team. We want words more than three or more letters, and we'll do that in 60 seconds. And what I'll get you to do is, as you come up with your words, if you can just go into the chat box and post the words that you come up with into the chat box, just as a message to everyone. Don't wait till the end. Just as you think of a word, and I know you're already thinking about them now, post them straight in the chat box, and then we'll just count them up at the end of the exercise. So is everyone cool about that? Everyone gets the idea, what we're trying to do here? Okay, feeling confident. But firstly, what's our goal? How many words do we think we can collectively come up with in the next 60 seconds? Any ideas? Any estimates?
30.
Hey, you guys already started. What are you doing? Romance,
Yeah.
Lovely.
Right
Okay,
onto it.
so 30. Okay, well, we're going to try and beat 30 words, 3 or more letters in the next 60 seconds. And I'll just bring up the timer, and you should be able to see the timer. And I'm going to go bring up my chat box as well, so I can, there it is, view them all. And we'll get started now. Let's go. Rome, Roman, France, yes. Form, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, we've got 7 so far, excellent. The form, yep, 8. 3 or more letters. Don't go for the 7-letter ones. Start with the 3. Bit of coaching there. Nine. Perform. Good. Okay, we're halfway, more than halfway through. We've only got 9 words. Focus on 3-letter. Okay, man, good. 11, good. Cream, yep. 3-letter words. Focus on the 3-letter words. Mace, good. 12. Rope, 13. Ran, 14. Man, 15. Is that a word, Emma? I'll take it. I'll pace, yep. 16. And we've got time up. Okay, so we've got 17 words. Corn, I'll take corn in. 18 words. Okay, excellent. Well, the reality is that if we repeated that, we'd probably then continue to as you suggested there, Melanie, reap greater numbers. But I'll take you through the purpose of the exercise very shortly. And thank you for participating in that. Actually, would anyone like to have a guess as to how many words officially on WordMaker there can be made out of the word performance altogether? And that includes 2-letter words as well. Any ideas? Take a guess.
I'm going to go 100, Craig.
Okay. All right. So it's actually 411.
Wow.
Whoa.
And I was very surprised by that as well. So when you see the 2-letter words, you sort of think, oh, okay, well, I'm never going to use any of those. But if you're a Scrabble fan, 411 words, it's pretty amazing. So check it out if you're into your letters and words.
Craig, okay. Mel and I just realised that we were private chatting each other the words, so you might have had 10 or 15 more.
Oh, there you go. Excellent.
Because we're really smart.
All right. So note to self, re-emphasize that part of the instruction. All right. Excellent. Okay. So we got there in the end. Well done, everyone. So when it comes to high business performance, there are 7 key, and sorry, I just want to make a note here that we also have Steve, I think, has just joined us, Steve James. So welcome, Steve, and you're welcome to share your screen as well, so we can see you too. So thanks for coming on board. So in terms of high business performance, or any high performance, there are 7 key domains which I talk about: motivation, value, knowledge, efficiency, people, excellence, and issues. And it's these domains that typically we will do, but often we do it reactively. And so what we're trying to do here is understand, and what I'll take you through is, why are these domains important? What are the signs when we need to do something about them? Why we should do something about it? So what are the benefits? And then talk about what actions we could take. And as part of that, I'm going to get you to try and brainstorm a bit around what actions you can take in terms of each of these 7 domains. And when it comes to these domains, as I said, these are important in any aspect of performance, even when it comes to playing games, for example. So if I just take you back through that exercise we just did, in terms of motivation, we addressed motivation because the way that game was designed, you may not have realized it, but it actually addressed all of the 9 motivational drivers that are critical for high energy. And you'll learn more of that later on. And just a reminder too, that at the end, you'll all have an opportunity to indicate whether you'd like to take up my free offer to receive your own personal motivational map and a debrief after the session. So that game was designed to energize every element of motivation. Again, I'll take you through that later. I made it very clear about what was important and what wasn't. So we didn't want to worry about any words that were under three letters. Any under 3 letters was going to be wasteful because it wasn't part of the exercise. So we had to focus on waste. We set a goal of 30 words. We didn't necessarily execute on that. That's more about excellence. But we had a goal. And so we knew what we needed to measure to understand what success was going to look like. Efficiency. So we actually, by working as a team, and rather doing this as an individual exercise, by doing it as a team exercise, we shared the load. And so effectively, we delegated amongst each other to help out. I set very clear expectations. We worked as a team. I was giving feedback at the time as to how we were progressing. And they're all important elements of how we actually build trust and love amongst people. We set a goal, and we set a goal that we thought might be a bit of a stretch. And that's important when it comes to excellence, is actually expecting that we're going to achieve a certain standard. And that was done as part of that game. And finally, I confronted the big elephant that often is around when it comes to games, and that is, well, how do you make people feel included? And how do you avoid sometimes the reality that people might be more skilled than others? Well, the easiest thing to do in terms of that particular issue when it comes to gaming is actually just get everyone to join as a team. So these 7 critical actions, they're, as I said, they're pretty universal. And it doesn't matter if you're playing a game, or you're running a business, or you're running a team, or you're working on your own. They are important when it comes to how you set yourself up for success. So we're going to go through each of these 7 critical actions over the course of the next half hour. And importantly, what I'd like you to think about is, well, how could I apply what Craig's discussing right now in terms of my business? And not necessarily all of these will be an opportunity for you. You might actually have, and I'm sure there are aspects of your business now where you have a certain level of maturity around these 7 areas, these 7 domains and actions. But what I'd like to do at the end is have each of you share at least one thing that you feel has, I guess, made you think about what you could do differently in your own context. So we will start with motivation, because motivation is the key to everything. So the question for you is that if your work or your business was a separate entity, what do you think your work or your business would like you to be in terms of your motivation? Someone who's a positive spark who actually elicits energy, or someone who is effectively like a cold and damp puddle that really isn't going to achieve much? And obviously the answer to that question is, well, the former. That really, when it comes to anything that you're committing to have high energy, to have high motivation is really important because it elicits action. So when we look at boosting motivation, the reality is it's important, because without motivation, we end up with unfulfilled plans and unused resources. So as good as our plans might be, and as well-resourced as we are in terms of time, money, skills, knowledge, we can still miss the mark if we just don't have that energy, that will to actually undertake the work itself. And the signs of when that's a problem is that when you're simply just over it. Now, I know that there's particular times of the day that I'm always over it. And so I have strategies around how I manage my work to make sure that I'm doing the work that requires higher energy at the times that I have higher motivation. So if your days are a struggle, if you're disengaged with the things that you've committed to, that's a sign that you need to actually think about, well, how do I reorganize, recalibrate what it is I'm doing and how I'm feeling about it to be more motivated? And the benefits are obvious. I mean, as I said before, motivation, it enables action. It actually fuels action. It also has a relationship with resilience. So it strengthens our ability to respond to unexpected circumstances, especially negative circumstances. And if you're working amongst others, being a motivated person inspires others. It's quite attractive, and it engages others to perhaps try and be motivated too, or to certainly feed off your high energy. So the question is, when your motivation's down, what can you do about it? And I won't get you to talk about this particular one. We will look at the actions around the other 6, but in terms of this one, what we will be doing, and what I am offering to all of you, and again, it's an offer, so you don't have to take it up, is to take you through your own personal motivational map, complete a 10-minute online survey, and then we'll schedule a 30-minute debrief in the next week or so I can take you through strategies to address any areas of your motivation where that needs to be boosted. And I'll get you to indicate whether you want to take up that offer at the end of today's session. So the key action around boosting motivation is actually, firstly, knowing what are your primary motivational drivers. And this is what we learned through the motivational mapping exercise. Knowing then to what extent those motivational drivers is being satisfied right now. And where there are gaps, where there are particular drivers that are important to you, but they're not being satisfied because of current circumstance, then looking at what can we shift, what can we change to actually boost that motivation. And then we do that. We actually just implement those strategies to boost motivation. So this is always the starting point around high performance. It's about understanding your current context, how you feel about it, and if there are any gaps, if there's anything which actually is getting in the way of your high energy, taking action to do that. Because really, in the end, despite having a plan of everything you need to be doing and having good reason to do it, like, it's part of an overall strategy around either your business or your work, as good as that plan and that strategy might be, without that motivation, then it's going to be a real struggle to implement that. So that's motivation. Now, in terms of the next 6 ones, what I'd like to do is actually get you to tell me which one you'd be most interested in learning about next. So what I'll do, and I'm assuming this is going to work because I've put a lot of effort into setting this up, is to just share a poll. And the poll is, which critical action do you want to do next? So I'll launch the poll, and hopefully this comes up and you can see a poll in front of you right now. Can you see that poll? Okay, so just choose which critical action do you want to focus on next. This is part of humanist learning theory, whereby you give the learners the power to direct their own learning. So you all should be feeling quite engaged by this opportunity to direct the learning coming up next. So if you can just respond to one of those questions. I'm not seeing any responses come up, which is a bit disappointing because I think you probably have given your response. It's just that something's not working at my end. So if you've all responded, I'll just end the poll, and I've got no results. So that didn't work. So how about a show of hands? Who would? We'll go back to the old style. Actually, just call it out. Just shout out. And whoever's got the loudest voice will go with that one. Renee, I'm not suggesting you've got a loud voice, but
I do have a loud voice when I unmute myself. Confront the elephants, deal with the issues.
All right, I'm going to choose a person each round, and then you can just choose the next one. Okay, so we'll just go with confront the elephants. So we're going to start at the end, which is normally the end, but that's okay. So if I just go back to the menu and we'll just click on that, and it'll take me straight into this one. Okay, so issues, confronting the elephants. Okay, so you may have heard of the term about the elephant in the room. Is everyone familiar with that particular term? Great, excellent. Okay, so we will all have things right now, I suspect, that are in the back of our mind, and that maybe they're things that we didn't get done yesterday or last week or have been hanging around for months. And the question is, well, when are we going to confront that? Okay, so the challenge for you and your work and your business is, are you someone who actually does tackle the challenges head on? Or are you someone who actually basically herds elephants and is spending more time avoiding or procrastinating or avoiding these, these elephants than actually tackling them head on? And obviously from the business perspective and from a performance perspective, it's got to be the former. You've got to be someone who actually faces into and has really, I guess, a mechanism to face into the elephants and to deal with them. Because the reality is that when it comes to issues, and this is what we're talking about issues, challenges around your business. Issues are inherent in all business. And issues that really matter, they actually tend to grow over time as business grows. And ultimately, it costs more to fix issues than actually prevent them or to deal with them when they first come about. So, when there are signs that we're constantly putting out a fire that keeps reappearing, the same issues keep reappearing, whether it's daily or weekly or monthly, you catch yourself thinking, oh, I can't believe that's happened again, or not that problem again. And if those issues are beginning to restrict your optimal performance, whether it's your business outcomes or your work outcomes, then that's a sign that something's got to shift and change. Because again, the other risk around not confronting the elephants is that you get more to herd and you waste energy herding elephants around and avoiding them than actually dealing with the issues. Now, this is almost, it's great that we're talking about this, because this also then becomes an influence around your motivation, because it ultimately can wear you down over time. So the challenge around this is we're saying, well, what do I need to do differently? Because the benefits of actually being good at facing into issues is sleeping better at night. I mean, just people become more at ease with what's going on. They're not in denial, but they're objective about what's going on and how to deal with it. And they may not have the solutions either, but they're prepared to discuss them and share them, and because they recognize the benefit of that. So the other benefit is that you can become more certain about outcomes. So when you remove issues and uncertainty, naturally performance becomes more predictive. And also when you become effective at dealing with issues, and again, it's not about having the solutions, it's about just taking the actions to try and pursue a solution. That habit that you build can be a great habit to address any challenge that then confronts you. And look, this gets into the whole world of then procrastination and the like. But importantly, this is a very key domain around being high performance. It's addressing the issues effectively. So just a quick, I guess, hand over to you. How does anyone want to just share? Anyone feels that they're particularly good at this, or does anyone have a mechanism or an approach where they feel that they have reasonable control around how they face into the issues that confront them? Marnie?
I'm no expert, but I find when I'm procrastinating on something, or there's something that that's taking up too much of my brain when I'm thinking about it, I just do it. So I often will have maybe a plan I need to write, and it's just too involved, and I just keep putting it off, and I'm putting it off, and I spend hours thinking about it. If that's happening, I just do it and get it done.
Yep.
Right? And if I get that feeling that something needs to happen, for instance, I've got to study a master's as part of my profession now. Put it off. I've just started it. I'm doing it. I don't, and now I feel so much better about it because I've dealt with it and I'm addressing it.
Yes. Yep. And it's that it's not surprising, and well, sometimes it is surprising that after you've procrastinated around something for a while, when you actually just get that energy to do it, suddenly it's not as big as you thought it was.
No, that's right.
And as you said, Marnie, you feel like you can't find the time or have the capacity to do something, but when you just go and do it, suddenly the capacity appears.
Yeah.
And this is the beauty around us being able to be agile and flexible. But importantly, the challenge I find around this action is that often we're not the best person to solve our own problems because of our inherent biases and our lack of objectivity when it comes to solving issues that are personal to us. So I think that the critical actions to consider are, to get assistance, and that could just be asking, a colleague, a friend, hey, have you come across this? What's your view? What's your perspective? So that's one opportunity. I mean, obviously, if you want to go down the path, you can, get professional help or a coach or the like. But sometimes it's just simply having a conversation. I sort of liken it to sometimes when I've been asked to give advice to other people, how as I'm giving them that advice, I'm thinking, actually, I probably should do that myself. It's almost like you can remove yourself from yourself and be the most knowledgeable person. But then when it comes to your own personal affairs, you might actually struggle being that objective. I think the other thing too is to actually break issues down, is to look at the issue and to really, rather than be overwhelmed by the size of it, is actually to break it down into smaller parts. And again, go back to whatever your plan is, what your strategy is, what your goals are, and assess how that issue is impacting your goals. And maybe that's going to give you a perspective around how important it is, and maybe the urgency that you need to try and just take any action to get it resolved. So that would be my suggestion to you, over the course of the next week, is to just sit down and write down what are the things that are bugging you about your work and your business right now. And maybe who could I speak to, within my network to just have a chat. Maybe you could do, Get Fresh, where you sort of say to the other person, well, let's share each other's challenges right now and see what we can do. But this needs to be a constant exercise around the issues. I think, motivation and managing issues are probably the two fundamental aspects that need to be consistently, you need to find time for that. And it needs to be a bit more formal than waiting for it to get so big and it's weighing you down so much that finally you have to do something. Again, it's about being on top of things that can help manage it going forward. Cool. All right. I'm going to pick Marilyn. Marilyn, what would you like to focus on next? We've done motivation and we've done issues. Which of the other 5 would you like to have a discussion about?
Well, actually, on your poll, Craig, I chose confront the elephants, but I'll check the next one off now. Probably stop waste.
Okay, stop waste. We'll go to that. All right. So the question is ultimately, would your work or your business prefer you to be mining diamonds or just strewn in waste? And obviously the answer to that question is, again, the former, that really everything we do in our business and our work needs to be building value. And unfortunately, though, one of the challenges around being habitual, being human, is that we can sometimes unwittingly build waste into the things that we do. Now, that might become an issue that you need to confront. But in the meantime, stopping waste and stopping activity or reducing the amount of time we spend on activity that isn't serving us is important, because typically most people I know don't have time or money to burn. Okay. The other importance around being very mindful and aware of activity that's not adding value is that it can be easily baked into the way we work. It becomes the way we work around here. And it can happen unconsciously. And then ultimately, waste can get in the way of being good at delivering our service, whether it's serving customers or clients or other stakeholders. It's very important to be aware of it, because it can ultimately mitigate or diminish the quality of our service. So when you're noticing yourself having to do things like rework things or rework parts of your process or repeat steps in your processes, when you notice that you're producing outcomes that no one's actually appreciating or being willing to pay for, or when you know that in fact there are some activities that deliver a higher return on your investment than others, these are signs of when you should be beginning to think about, well, hey, maybe I need to rethink the way I'm going about my work. Because ultimately the benefits are that when you stop waste and you're aware of it, at least, you do focus your efforts on the right work, which improves efficiency and enhances the quality of service as well. But again, sometimes I think that the key sign is when you're seeing, not unlike the issues, you're seeing that parts of what you do, you're having to repeat because of some point of failure. Sometimes that's particularly likely when you've got other stakeholders or other suppliers to a service that you're depending upon. And there are perhaps, handover points between different people in a process that then can potentially influence the quality of the overall outcome. So again, I'll open it up to you. How aware are you, or have you identified in the past where you've seen that there's actually parts of what you do that perhaps hasn't been as valuable as you thought, and have you made any changes? I'll just open it up to you. Any ideas?
Craig, I think
Emma?
Craig, I think some of the things that we can easily overcome to avoid waste is a lot of the tech things. We may be using a fairly low tech option. We've used it that way, and our business has changed and evolved, and we actually need to stop, take a look at maybe a tech option that's going to completely remove all of that guesswork. A really great example of that I've implemented is I've been using an Excel spreadsheet for my customer relationship management. Serves me quite well for a little while, but it's at the point now where a proper CRM system will serve me better. So I've just implemented one of those, and I tell you what, I don't know why I wasted so much time. It really is. A lot of the time it's the spending the money to do that, but it's, it will, if you think about your time in terms of how much you could be earning in that hour, the return on investment is sometimes almost instant.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. I think that is the big game changer now, is just the variety, and also just the number of options that we have around how we can actually use tech. Yeah, a simple one for me was just starting to implement DocuSign into my processes with clients, rather than getting them to handwrite a signature and scan it and then send it back. And it might only save 3 or 4 minutes, but it's actually, I think, part of the service that we can provide to the people who depend upon us is just making it easy for them, and saving 3 minutes. These days might not seem a lot, but the impact is significant. So
it's all about making it easier for people to work with us.
Yeah, and that's right. And it's a principle, and it's not the amount of time; it's the principle of being consistent in terms of how we make it easy for people. Because it does support how people perceive us and our brand ultimately too. So
yeah, in our practice, we want clients to be efficient, and we also, so we try and measure that efficiency. I probably about 2 years ago took on a proposal software. It used to take me 5 to 6 hours to put a proposal together for clients. Now it literally takes me 5 minutes, and the payments collected at the same time. So, that might cost me $150 a month plus the payment collection fee, but that's, an hour of my time a month that, is recuperated. So people always say, oh, it's expensive. I'm like, but what else can you do with that time?
That's right. That's right. And so the real focus here is just, again, it's a higher self-awareness around what actually do you do, and how does that add to the value of your work. So what I suggest to people is, if you're not sure, conduct a work audit. Just take a note, keep a diary for a few days as to what you're spending your time on. So it's not so much how much time you're spending, it's where you're spending your time, and assessing the value of that. And maybe it is that it might be better to have someone else do that for you, or maybe, as Emma suggested, you find a technology solution to try and remove that step from your processes that you are personally responsible for. That's the key here. So you can see there's a theme around self-awareness here, that the best performers are constantly checking in and finding the time to check in and consider each of these 7 domains around performance. And it's best that we don't wait until it becomes a critical issue, where we basically break down through stress, or our services and processes break down because they're over capacity. It's about actually trying to avoid that by being mindful and aware, and having within your weekly work cycle, at least, find the time just to think about these different opportunities to understand what your performance is achieving and how it can be improved. Okay, let's go to the next topic. So I'll pick Mel. Mel, would you like to choose from knowledge, efficiency, and people?
I would love to choose knowledge. Measure what matters is definitely one that I ticked.
Excellent. All right. So measure what matters. So measure what matters. So the question there is that, would your business or work prefer you to be, or prefer to understand exactly how it works, so that we understand what the key drivers are and what's important, or to prefer you to be sort of lost in the clouds, big picture, but no detail. And there's a time and place to be big picture, no detail, and that's when you're developing a vision or a strategy. But really, when it comes to performance day to day, it is about having something that measures what matters. Ultimately, knowledge about what you do and its effectiveness is powerful, because it informs you about where you're at now and what your future is going to be like. And ultimately, when we have measurement and we measure the things that matter, it enables us to be more proactive, rather than reacting to outcomes that surprise us. when we are struggling to make decisions about what it is we do, when we're relying on gut feel a lot, and when we find that we are reacting more to symptoms than actually addressing root causes, these are all signs that, in fact, maybe we don't know enough about what we are doing. And that might be in regards to customers and their view of us. It might be in terms of, as we talked before, about waste. It might be in terms of where we spend our time or activities we spend our time on. But really, I think the key is around decision making. If you're struggling to make decisions in the day-to-day, around even choosing which task should I do next, well, this all actually is a sign that perhaps you're not actually measuring what needs to be measured to make those decisions easy. So the benefits of this is actually ultimately more informed options. We become better at planning the future when we have information about the past. And it actually serves to minimize risks and losses, because when we do have knowledge about our performance, again, we can be more proactive about our future. So in terms of what you do, what's something that you do consistently measure? Anyone like to share? Maybe someone who hasn't shared yet, although you've all shared so far. But what's something that you measure in your work that gives you knowledge about the performance that you're delivering? Okay, so no one measures anything at all. That's all right. That's all right. Okay.
Something like customer satisfaction, Craig?
Yeah.
I do measure that.
Okay. How do you measure that, Marilyn?
Well, just to put it bluntly, just to understand whether they are able, if they're satisfied with the service depends on the timeliness, I think, of it.
Yep.
And also their feedback.
Yes. Yep. And is
that felt that?
And do you do that through a survey, an email, through manually? How do you get that feedback?
Well, some of them do it through a survey of sorts and on Google, but mostly it's just getting feedback verbally or through emails from them.
Yep.
That
right.
they're happy with the job.
Okay. Yep. And so, what do you do with that information once you've got it?
Not much, actually.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So the other aspect of measuring what matters, I'm not meaning to make an example of you, Marilyn. Thank you for sharing. But is then the follow up with that information? How does that influence then decisions into the future in regards to customers around maybe changing the service that you provide or the way that you engage them, or maybe you find, and I've seen this before, where all the effort to collect that information doesn't actually give any feedback that provides any real direction as to what to change. So maybe the way that we're asking questions or the questions that we're asking aren't really designed to provide us with something which we can do something with that feedback to make positive changes. But it's great that you're actually going out there and engaging on that basis. So the key thing here around the measure what matters is firstly to understand what does matter. So this gets back to your goals. And if you have a goal that actually sets a target, well then what are the things beneath that goal that need to happen? And what's a measure around the frequency, around the quality, and then it's about putting in place a mechanism, whether it's manual. If it's marketing these days with Google Analytics, we can measure a lot around marketing activity automatically. But it's then understanding, let's put those measures in place to enable us to get feedback around the effectiveness of what we do. So ultimately, it's about everything we do, all activity we do should come from a plan. I don't know many people who have time just to randomly take up things. So really, if you're going to go very pure 100% on this, it's saying, everything I do, I can see how it relates back to my plan. And And then it's about defining, well, for all those activities, what are the key success factors? And then how do we measure and assess this? And you know, this for me as an ex-chartered accountant, yeah, this is my sort of, you know, where I love to play, because when people see that they can actually take control around their performance through numbers, it's quite a powerful thing. Again, it's not about measuring necessarily, I say plan for everything, measuring everything. It's starting off with the first key, you know, enablers or key performance indicators that are important. But certainly, once we measure, we create knowledge, and that's really important. So my challenge to you would be to think of, well, what's the one thing that you know is critical for your success, and how do you measure it? If you do, if you don't measure it, how could you measure it? And what's that measurement telling you? What decisions is that enabling you to take? So have a think about that. Okay, we'll move on. Perhaps if I ask, I've asked Mel, and Aroa, what would you like to focus on next? We've got efficiency, people, and excellence left.
Let's go with people.
And you might be on mute. Sorry.
Oh, am I off mute now?
You are now. Yep.
Okay. Can we go with the people?
Yep, people. So I don't necessarily mean literally love your people. I'm sort of meaning in a general sense. I mean, you can if you want. But the choice ultimately, when it comes to anyone that you depend upon in your business, whether it's customers, whether it's your peers, whether it's staff, contractors, suppliers, is to really engage with them. So ultimately, you know, would your business or your work want you to be someone who's highly engaging, inspiring, someone who, you know, is colorful and vibrant, or someone who actually, from a relationship perspective, is very much one-dimensional or just a shell of a person? Technically, a skeleton isn't a shell, I suspect. But anyway, that's a biological matter. And of course, it is the former. So when we talk about loving people, it is about understanding, firstly, who you depend upon. And it's important because I don't know many people who run any activity where there aren't other people involved. Okay. So people like to be engaged, and so therefore it pays to be engaging, and the caring ultimately is reciprocated. So when you're being let down by others, when your behavior or other behavior of people around you is inconsistent, or you're not getting the results you need from other people who you depend upon, then that's a sign that you need to rethink your strategy around how you're engaging people. Because when we do that well, you know, there are some natural benefits. Firstly, we begin to see strengthening in accountability and responsibility. As people's expectations are more aligned, and we have those conversations around, look, this isn't working, this is what we need to achieve, and this is my expectations of me, what are your expectations of you for me? We begin to build trust, and that ultimately leads to better business outcomes, because we know that in most instances, business does depend upon people performing. So what actions do you take around this? In my experience, most people, including myself, don't take up all the opportunities available to them to give and get feedback. And when we're giving and receiving feedback, and we set up a mechanism by which we you know, honor that and consistently pursue that, then that changes things. It changes relationships. It changes the dynamics between people. I think also random acts of appreciation and kindness are really powerful as well. So is there someone who, you know, you could identify right now that may not be feeling the love, or maybe you need to have a conversation with them about, you know, how you can interact more effectively for outcomes, and then begin to sort of engage and set expectations, but then also follow up through appreciation. Yeah, I've had a number of great acts of kindness sort of reciprocated over the past 6 months, where it hasn't taken a lot of effort, a lot of thought, but it's been quite powerful, because it just recognizes the importance of engaging people. And so again, the challenge for you is to think, well, who's important in your business for your success, and how well are we engaging each other right now? And how can I build a mechanism to maintain that consistency? and then through that enhanced relationship, actually be building a stronger relationship that's going to be more effective for us to be successful in the future. And feedback is the key. I mean, people who listen to me, know that I bang on about feedback, but it's just such an important aspect of, and such an important opportunity when it comes to building relationships between people, no matter what their role is in your success. Okay, I'm just conscious of time, so I'm going to then go straight to efficiency. And with efficiency, what we're looking at here is the question of, well, would your business rather you be hitting your targets all the time, or actually be having you spend more time stressed about what's not being done? And the key to this is thinking about, and of course it's the former, it's always the former, is that ultimately, whether you run your own business or you run a team, no matter what you do, typically we can't do everything. But the other important point is that you're not good at everything. I'm not good at everything. And the most important point is that you shouldn't be good at everything, because that's a real trap. And it's certainly a trap for people who are solopreneurs, and this constant struggle between, do I do it myself or do I get someone else to do it for me? And the trade-off between time and cost. It's very important. I talk about delegate 10% every 2 weeks. That's really just a call out to say, hey, every week, think of something, or every 2 weeks, think of something that you don't really get fired up or motivated by to do. And the challenge is then, well, how could you either automate it or delegate it or outsource it, or maybe don't even do it anymore? But just challenge yourself to be thinking about this, because really there's a lot of benefits around it. And it's really important that when you're at full capacity, or you're getting physically and mentally stressed, and you're not doing the things that really need to be done, the critical things, because they're being basically undermined, or they're being distracted in terms of these other activities, well, then there's a sign that you really need to be thinking about where you're spending your time. So whereas waste is about value and making sure that you're working on valuable things, efficiency is around how you're spending your time, and actually, are you spending your time effectively? So the benefits are that you'll work on your business, you'll get the best resources to do the work, and that might be someone else. I'm getting too old to be learning new technology. I'm getting too old, really, as my kids will be telling me, to be, keeping up to date with social media. I mean, it changes every week. I'm still struggling with Instagram. So, the question is, do I try and do that myself and take myself away from what I'm good at, or do I engage someone else? And it needs to be the latter. You need to free capacity to own a business, to run a business. Really important. So the quickest way to get a sense of this is to run a start-stop audit. And that's simply where you think about, hey, what would I like to stop doing? And what would I like to start doing more of? And just take a note. Again, this is about this awareness. Take a note of during the week, what really gets you down when you're having to face into doing it? And how could I go about either getting someone else to do it, or doing it in a different way that's going to be at least more engaging, more efficient? So identifying work that's best left to others. I think too, the great opportunity that we have in Fresh is then to speak to other people who provide that service and get a real sense as to, well, what's this really about? What's this really about? Do I have my own self-limiting beliefs about how complex it is, or how expensive it is, or how difficult it would be to let it go? Again, it's, we often create our own fictions to justify our own choices. So, we can speak to other people to get a sense as to, well, the things that I don't really need to be doing anymore, how else could they be done? And I'm sure that, you won't be the first person ever to have, been challenged by that. So the efficiency domain is really about thinking, what can I actually delegate and get rid of to free me up? Because as business grows as well, and as team goals grow and responsibilities grow, you've got to have that capacity. It's really important. And finally, we'll come to excellence. And this is a good place to end. I mean, ultimately, excellence is about expecting the best. And the question is, well, you know, would your business prefer you, or your team prefer you to be someone who is consistent and to point, or to be complex and confusing and risky? And again, the answer is the former. Ultimately, having high standards, it builds your brand. And that's important because typically, especially if you're in business, there's going to be someone else who could do it if you can't deliver that level of excellence and do it consistently. And when we expect the best, we have high standards. It's normally consistent with most of our values, because typically everyone has the value of being a high performer and providing reliable, consistent, high standard of service. Really important, if you begin to notice that you're cutting corners or your standards are slipping, you're missing deadlines, you're getting feedback that, hey, that wasn't as good as what I expected, that's a sign to be thinking about, well, where are my standards right now? And how do I need to shift the way that I'm working to actually maintain that high level? Because when we are high standards, consistent, we meet expectations, you know, we basically walk the talk, it builds referrals, it builds interest, we become more attractive. You lead by example, and actually it's quite satisfying yourself to be able to do exactly what you promised to do. So it's very important in terms of reinforcing your own self-motivation. And the key action here is firstly to have a quality standard. So in terms of especially your service standards, what are your standards around how you deliver service to clients and customers or to stakeholders? Now, do you have a turnaround time? Do you have a response rate? Do you have some sort of measure around of quality that you can actually set with the recipient so that they understand exactly what to expect from you, and that when you deliver on that, hey, presto, the trust between you is just skyrocketed because you're just doing what they say. Most of the time when you see people disappointed with service, it's simply that I expected X, but I got Y, and Y wasn't enough. So really important. So be communicating your standards to dependents, and ultimately when you are achieving those high standards, let people know that you're doing that. You know, reinforce that you live by this and that you're proud of when you're achieving those standards. And there are opportunities to do that, especially if you're working with people who depend upon what it is you do. So that's the domain of excellence, of expecting the best. So ultimately, all of these actions, when you go through each of these actions, I'll just take you back to the final slide. When you go to all the actions around the domains, the key thing is self-awareness. The key is actually being able to find the time in your day-to-day, whether it's a daily routine, or whether it's a monthly routine, or whether it's a weekly routine, to actually have that time to be able to go and think about each of these domains. When we actually find the time for this, we find actually over time, it becomes a positive habit, and it becomes something which feeds on each other. There's a lot of interrelationships between these 7 critical actions. And so when we are consistent around this, we begin to build high performance, and performance that then just feeds into even better performance. So hopefully, just through the short session that we've had today, you may have come up with maybe 3 actions to improve your business performance this week. And certainly, if you'd like to feed that back to me over time, more than happy to talk more about that. But just again, we're short on time now. I just want to reiterate, for all of you who attended today, I have a free offer, and that is to give you a 10-minute online survey, which will produce your own personal motivational map report, and then for us to schedule a 30-minute debrief where I'll walk you through your report, and we can identify strategies to boost your motivation. And again, this is relevant to anything in terms of work, whether it's business or team related. So if you would like to take up that offer, and you don't have to take up the offer, I'm quite comfortable if you don't want to. then just please send me your email address in a private message to me now in the chat box. And then I'll get back to you and organise your MAP survey link and to schedule that debrief in the next week or so. Look, we are at the end of the session today. This will be has been recorded, so we will be able to give access to this if you want to come back to it at a later date through Fresh. But otherwise, I would thank you for your time and wish you all the best with addressing those 7 critical actions. And again, encourage you to think about what you can change in your day-to-day around at least having some awareness around how they impact your performance and your success. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Craig.
Thanks, Craig. That was awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks, Craig. That was really great.
Right.
Very motivating.
Excellent. Good. Thank you.